Hey guys, welcome to my channel, and today we're reading When You're Protective by me. So let's get into it. Midoriya. Who wouldn't be protective of Midoriya? He had a heart of gold, which often got him into trouble a bit too much. So when the two of you became official, you thought you would have to be the one to put a stop to that. Of course, you wouldn't end his hero career, but also, you just wanted him to be reasonable. So, in normal everyday cases, if someone even talked about Midoriya badly, or if he came home and told you he wasn't feeling too well because someone offended him, you would really throw hands. And even Midoriya himself couldn't stop you. But when you had to fight, you trusted him to be strong enough. You knew he was wonderful and strong, enough to fight the strongest of villains. But every once in a while, he would still make sure he gets help. Sure, he aimed to be the #1 hero, but he really won't be able to do it if he keeps breaking his bones over and over. And more often than not, you would join him in any difficult missions just to be by his side and be able to help him, because you wouldn't risk losing him for anything in the world. Bakugou, you tried not to make it too obvious. After all, he would be offended, thinking you thought he couldn't protect himself. But it wasn't what he thought. Not at all. It was natural to feel worried about your boyfriend, wasn't it? Especially when his job put him in danger most of the time, and he wasn't even careful about that. He always wanted to beat up villains and seem cool and everything. But he could overestimate himself, because he always thought he was the best. And although there was no lie saying he was the best, that mentality wouldn't get him anywhere. So, you had done your best to keep him home as much as you could. But sometimes, when he wouldn't listen, you would call him during patrols to check up on him. But you got nothing. No response, most of the time. And you just had to wonder if he was trying to give you a heart attack. You would cry, your thoughts going wild, because he was an idiot, and he would really get himself hurt if he was left alone like that. When he came back and the two of you talked about things, you had discovered that the area he patrols was also patrolled by Kirishima as well, and you were so glad and relieved because you needed someone to keep your boom boom boy in control. Todoroki, he would get so many calls during patrols, but unlike Bakugou, he would answer each one of them, or at least leave a voice message when he can't answer. After all, he wanted to be the best boyfriend for you, so of course he had to do that. What kind of boyfriend would he be if he left you to cry? And most of the time, he didn't worry you too much. He was strong, and most of the time, he was smart enough to know when to call back up. But you still worried nonetheless, because he was still selfless and cared about people. You were happy though, that most of the time, he opted to rescue the people and protect them, rather than go for fighting villains. And whenever something bad would happen, he would always try not to get you to worry, by not telling you, which sadly, and ironically, always made you worry more. And sometimes when you got home a bit too late, you would check him from head to toe for any injuries, because he had a habit of forgetting when he was injured, and just not caring at all. You had taken up first aid classes just to be able to help him when he gets back home, and you were a bit sad you had to use them a bit too much. However, you tried your best not to be a pushover, and Shouto tried his best not to worry you too much. The relationship between you two was smooth most of the time. Sero, Sero was smart, most of the time, and he had enough common sense to know what and what not to do, and when to call for help and all that. But he was awful at taking breaks, especially when his bones were hurting and he felt like he couldn't get off the bed, or when he was really sick and would still insist on doing hero work, and you had to intervene. So, when he was asleep, you had taped him to the bed using this tape. When he woke up, he saw you sitting by his bed, waking up way earlier than him, and looking at him tiredly, telling him that you won't untape him unless he promises to stay home today, in which case he ends up doing so, not wanting to be taped to the bed for the rest of the day. Shinsou, he always went too hard on himself, feeling like everyone around him was already doing better than him, and he always wanted to improve, and you admired that, appreciated that, but you also knew that he shouldn't be pushing himself like that. Eye bags under his eyes, hours of sleep missed out on, and countless forgotten lunches. You were tired of it, and you were terrified because he always put others before himself, forgetting to even do the most basic of things. So you take it upon yourself to make sure he eats. So every day, you would go to his agency during breaks with food, and you would never let him work overtime, making sure to get him back from work and take him back home and help him sleep next to you instead of just 2 hours on the couch at work. And eventually, the guilt got to him, and he felt bad for making you run after him like this. So he had begun eating by himself and returning back home early as often as he could. Shigaraki worried you for a lot of reasons, besides being a bit unhinged and a bit too villainous. Yes, you were a villain, but you also had morals, and you were sure Shigaraki had them too. After all, he did love you and he cared about his friends. That was a sign of good morals, of course. But he would get too hurt in missions, sometimes, especially because he was lazy and way too careless. And if it wasn't missions, then you'd spend hours upon hours in front of a screen, playing, forgetting about food and sleep, and neglecting himself. Sometimes he would even forget to take a bath, and it was irritating. You weren't supposed to babysit him. You two were in a relationship, and you were adults. He was supposed to take things more seriously than that. But it also worried you, because you knew it wasn't directed at you. You knew he wasn't doing this to upset you or anything. He just didn't notice how much he was hurting himself, and you along the way. So you put your needs aside, until you could do better. You would always remind him to do better missions, and even spar with him sometimes, just so he never gets a bit too lazy during missions. And you would reward him if he ate, or took a bath, with cuddles and kisses, and you would even try to play with him sometimes. When you two have to sleep, you would pick him up, like a small child, and put him down on the bed, tucking him in, and reading him a bedtime story as you cuddled him close. As much as he made fun of you for it, it never failed to make him relax and fall asleep.